Okay, I'll open the meeting, the Selectmen's meeting of November 16th, 2015. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And I have to say, Vive la France.
Yeah, how sad, huh? Very sad.
Like, who could have seen that coming?
What's that?
Who could have seen that coming?
We left you alone and unattended.
Oh, we're in charge. Motion to adjourn?
Let's go.
When he fainted.
We made lots of decisions. I'd scribbled some notes. I'll leave them with you, Dawn.
Do you,
Coming back with the manifest.
okay, we've already seen, oh, we can't sign it.
Right.
Do you want to move on to the minutes? Well, no, he's back, we'll wait. Oh, it smells good. Somebody's lunch or supper. Do I have a motion to approve the manifests?
I'll make a motion to approve the accounts payable manifest of November 9th, 2015, and the payroll manifest of November 10th, 2015.
I'll second it. All in favor? Aye. I think we can move on to the minutes of 11-2 because there were no major changes, just a couple, and they were, I don't have a problem with
Make
it.
a motion that we approve the minutes of 11-2 as edited with the minor wording changes.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we gotta just sign the manifest and we'll move on to the BOS reports. I'll do that while we're signing the manifest?
My stuff?
Yeah.
Yep,
Well, yeah, and then we'll go back to, BOS.
okay. Just a few things. If I didn't tell you this, last time you met, our new dump truck is in and in service.
Yeah.
We still are accepting bids on a lovely 2006 Crown Vic at the fire department. Anybody's got a teenager that needs a beat-up car or
A big car.
a big car. Tax bills are out. They were mailed late last week, so we expect that they are in mailboxes by now.
Yes, they are.
And everybody got theirs, good. And they're due on the 19th of December, which I believe is a Saturday.
Okay.
And lastly, we need to go back to the CIP. We have not
You're right.
done that. Your agenda for 2 weeks from tonight is pretty light, and I wanted to see if you were interested in inviting the other two CIP folks back and
Sure.
picking that up then.
Yep.
Did you want to talk with department heads in that context, or are you not ready to do that yet? Or
What was that?
department heads, you want me to bring in any for CIP purposes?
Do we want to do that the same night, or do you
We're,
want to do that on a different night, or a different
How
day?
much time do we have?
None.
How much time do we have?
Process, the whole process. What's the goal date?
September? So,
Yeah.
Do we want to
Yeah.
get together with the,
Well, that's why, the only reason I was asking is stretching it out over multiple meetings,
yeah, no.
right?
I'm thinking maybe we want to get together with the department heads.
you had identified, in the CIP context, you had identified fire and highway
Right.
as the two that you wanted to spend time on.
Yeah.
Can we do it that same night of the CIP, or would we rather?
No, I'm still on CIP.
Yeah, no, on the
Why don't
30th.
we do it both on the same night?
Oh, the regular meeting and the CIP.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm asking you.
Because you just said the meeting was light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, do we want to meet with our department heads that night as well?
That's what I'm asking you.
I think I'm saying yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay. I think we can fit all that in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do Do we wanna meet with the department heads before we meet with the, CIP committee?
Well, why wouldn't the CIP committee meet with the department heads as well?
Yeah, we could,
Why would we meet separate with them?
which we always did.
No, not around, you're thinking budget, you're thinking operating budget.
With the CIP, no, we met, no, the CIP committee met separately with the department heads, and then it was sort of brought to the Board of Selectmen. This time, we're kind of involved in it. I don't remember.
Yes, right, yes, you're doing that, you're doing both steps yourselves.
Yeah, okay,
That's-
not a problem.
Okay.
On the 30th?
That is the plan, yes, I have to talk to those department heads and make sure we can make that happen, but, I will work toward that.
Rather than 7 o'clock for those guys, if it would be better for them, 6:30,
Oh, okay,
kind of messes it up a little
Do
bit.
that first for them?
Yeah.
okay.
Rather than have them hanging around, because they're gonna be hanging around anyway.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. That's all I got for you.
That's it, great. Now, any reports from the, committees, assigned boards and committees?
Nothing from planning, we meet this week.
Okay.
MPEC. Settle down, settle down. MPEC committee, we have chosen 3 firms that we want to, have next step discussions with. They are Ambit Engineering and Woodburn Landscaping, Ironwood Design and CMA Engineers, and then Hoyle Tanner. And we have set up 3 meetings, to meet with them. We're actually doing 5:30 meetings because the meeting calendar's just crazy. And so we're meeting with Ambit on 11/18, which is this Wednesday at 5:30 prior to the planning board.
Yeah, I see that.
11:23 Ironwood at 5:30, and then 12/1 with Hoyle Tanner at 5:30. And the goal is to have, on the 12/1, to have the meeting with them at 5:30, and then a regular MPEC committee meeting at 6:30 to kind of synthesize all of the discussions.
You know, there was a plan put together that cost, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, somewhere around 20 grand for, a plan for the recreation department that I think was.
Well, there was a master plan document.
Right.
Yeah.
Do we have, who's going to decide the leadership of where this plan, what we're hoping to develop here? Because I don't think the town wants to spend $30,000 or less on something that we can't afford. So how do we put a handle on that? You know what I'm saying?
Well, there are a couple of things in there. First off, I think what we're asking them to do is, based on, leveraging the info that was in the master plan, as well as the New Hampshire listens and all of that,
Right.
come up with a conceptual design of what it would be, and then recommendations for phased approaches.
I like the phased idea.
Yeah.
I don't know if we've ever,
'Cause
we've
nobody-
never discussed what kind of money or what kind, how developed we wanna make this. Are there gonna be buildings involved? Besides the outside fields and stuff like that, are we talking buildings? That's where the money comes in.
Well, there's the things that have been discussed at the MPEC committee meeting about the types of things that we would want to see in the plan, right? And, I can go back through the minutes and bring that into your, or,
That would be great.
email them to you.
Yeah. And
The thing is
email them to Mark too, and.
if you're gonna have ball fields,
Mhm.
you're gonna potentially need some kind of a structure.
Right.
Right.
No, I understand that.
Yeah.
Storage or concession
Yeah,
or something
yeah.
like that, yeah.
But does anybody have a grand vision that it's gonna be a huge
Inside
expensive?
tennis courts and.
No. No,
That's exactly the
No.
concern,
no,
yeah.
no,
Okay,
no.
so if you can get those minutes, that would be great, because I think the Hampshire Listens kind of listed what was, and it didn't seem to be a lot of hard, building type things within New Hampshire Listen, so I just wanna make sure that the.
No, if you think
'cause I don't
about,
wanna waste the money, I want a good plan.
if you think about what we have over here, we have this
Right.
little, you know,
Yeah.
kind of thing, right?
The other thing is that it's so far removed from civilization in a sense, that policing it would be a problem as well. You don't wanna put anything of tremendous value out there because it is so much of the time alone.
Yeah.
And, there has been vandalism at that site with the building that, the home that was there was burned down. So it is isolated, so that's the other thing to keep into consideration.
So, Chris, speaking of that, a couple of members of the MPEC committee asked me about, cutting the grass out there.
Does it need to be mowed again?
Yeah, the feeling is that, you know, we've opened it up, we've encouraged people to go out and use it, and now it's really starting to look kind of,
We've already done that once, and we really have to keep those fields open. To reclaim fields is expensive, so.
yeah.
Yeah, we actually, I haven't tracked it down yet. We had a sniff at somebody that wanted to do it for free, so.
Oh, okay, check that,
I'm
because I didn't.
checking that one first.
Yeah,
and then,
absolutely, but the thinking
and,
that some of the members of the committee had was that even to cut it was like less than $200.
Yeah, it's not gonna be.
So it's not a
Okay,
lot, but,
we bush hogged it, right, and that took care of a lot of the brush that had come in.
It might have been before my time,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
okay.
So that's it, that's where we are
We
with,
really have to keep that field, those fields open, although all that tall grass is good for the wildlife. They like that too, so. Good deer hunting in there. Okay, we did get a few comments from our third member of the board who's not here tonight, and he had, regarding budget committee, the school had their draft one review. The bottom line is a 2% increase, primarily driven by a number of new initiatives, which include hiring and expansion of programs that amount to between $200,000 to $250,000. The board stated they have work to do in the area of high school tuition because their numbers are off based on what they described. This is the back of his napkin. It looks like the tuition increase will be $60,000 to $70,000 over what they showed in the draft one budget. Lastly, they are working on how best to present their merit pool, whether to keep a lump sum in one area or somehow spread to all affected positions. Their current approach is to spread it, however, it ends up looking like a 6% increase in those positions versus what they say will average 3%. This is because the position did not show the pool and individual account numbers last year. It was instead in the pool. No report on shift from Dover to Co-Brown. I assume that's students. And that was all he had to say, Mark Carpenter had to say on the budget committee. He was unable to attend tonight. So other than that, I think that's it, right? There is some correspondence relative to the public hearing, so we'll leave that until we open the public hearing.
do you have the whole, assessing,
That's a good question. The whole assessing,
everybody who's involved in that discussion here, do you wanna try to move that up?
no, I wouldn't start a public hearing in case
No,
people.
not the public hearing, I'm looking down in general business.
Item
Oh.
B.
Assessing contract, okay, yeah, no, we can, I was gonna do something else, I just
Yeah.
wanna make sure.
If everybody who
I
has a
just wanna
voice in
make
that
sure
is
I
here.
have, where's my paperwork, from the public hearing? I know it was given to me, hold on a second. So much paper. Okay, yeah, we can, yeah, we'll talk with the assessors, you're all here, hi guys, and girls. Come right up to the table. There's plenty of chairs. Come right up, make yourselves comfy. And identify yourself for the folks at home. This is the Board of Assessors. You can come up too, Sue.
John Warren.
Gene Reed.
The Stalkers.
So you're here for the contract, I assume?
We're here
That's-
for discussion of the contract.
Okay. And you folks have already voted one way or the other on the contract, or have a recommendation?
we have a recommendation that we continue with the current contract provider who's been with us for 5 years now
Okay.
and who performed the revaluation. They came aboard after we had another assessing company work for the town for the previous evaluation. And we sampled at that time many contracts. And it's up to the Board of Selectmen whether we go out to bid on this one or to accept the proposal that's come forward from Avatar. I'll interject some personal thoughts here. I as Mary remembers, I was at Alex for Avatar many years ago for what I thought was good cause, and it was at that time. I think Avatar's come a long way. They suffer the stigma of what's happened in the past. And I think that they work together quite well with the town. What I mean by the town is mostly with Sue, who's the day-to-day coordinator of everything that happens, and secondarily with Chris. We get involved as a board when we talk about abatements, and that's when we interface with them the most. And we rely a lot on their input. They review all requests for abatements and forward their recommendations to us, and it's up to us whether we go along with those or not. They've been responsive on getting those evaluations of the requests back to us. Susan is in touch with them frequently. Frequently. I'm not in here every day, so I don't get to see the interplay, but she relays that to us. So, I gave you a long answer to a short question. We do recommend that we stay with Avatar. The only question that came across my mind, and therefore I passed it on, and collectively it came across, is whether there's any impediment to selecting on a no-bid process. That's up to the Board of Selectmen whether to do that or not. I will point out that we're late in the season because their contract does end on December 31st. So that presents another, but not insurmountable problem time-wise. So my answer is yes, we did vote on it. Yes, we recommended Avatar.
Yeah, you did point out one thing. We've had them for 5 years. We had a short span in between when we didn't have them, and then we had them for many, many years before that. So, and that, the original time that we had with Avatar culminated in a huge issue over the reval of Pawtuckaway. And so,
Mary, excuse me for interrupting you. I'd like everybody to have an opportunity to speak, though. We don't speak with one voice, so if anybody else would entertain that, please.
sure. Oh, yeah, no.
Okay,
Jump in whenever you want,
okay.
if you have anything. But, so, I, as a taxpayer myself, I haven't had that kind of a success with Avatar, even up until just recently, when we tried to get them to be reasonable about a very large assessment on our piece of property. And we had to have, we went to a lot of different hoops and got nowhere with Avatar. And I do hear a lot of complaints out in the field as far as Avatar. So, our third member, was in his, note to us, although he's not here so he can't vote, he was in favor of keeping the Avatar, contract, or renewing the contract. I would like to see it go out to bid, personally, but,
Well, so, the two questions I have is, first, you haven't gone out to bid, but do you have any kind of like anecdotal feel for how competitive they are relative to other options and the services that they provide?
It's a matter of record what the previous bids were. My memory doesn't tell me, but I will say that this bottom line has gone down $8,000 on a total contract of, so it's gone down. So we're better than holding the line in terms of budgetary for the same services. So that's, as far as your general situations, your specific situation, I'm not gonna get into addressing that, but we were pleased to see that there was a lot of information forthcoming after a while. Secondarily, we have had nobody come forward, I'm thinking, come forward and complain specifically about Avatar. I have had one personal email that wanted to know why their taxes went up. And my short, but I didn't want to be flippant, response was, when you spend more, taxes tend to go up as a general statement. This revaluation, which is state law mandated that all shall revalue not less than every not more than every 5 years, has reflected some increase in values in properties because the market has recovered somewhat. And the market analysis, it's not what I think my property is worth or an individual thinks their property is worth. It's based on statistical analysis for mass appraisal. And that increase in value on some people's property offset what they thought was gonna be a reduction in their total tax bill, because the two multipliers are valuation and tax rate. You change either one of those multipliers and it's gonna give you an increase in your equals tax bill. So I haven't heard anything other than that one person, and I'll be glad to hear from anybody. So, and nobody rarely likes to pay property taxes. So people, when you mentioned that you had some complaints about Avatar, we had complaints about the previous assessing company too, because the facts and the fact that we're dealing with people's money does produce a disproportional amount of negativity than it does positively. I've never had anybody come in the years I've been doing this, both in Massachusetts and here, and say, geez, great job, guys. I love my tax bill, I love my assessment. So you will tend to hear negatives, and it's hard to quantify that, because the opposite of that is a positive or a neutral, and you don't hear about that. As far as you wanting to go out to bid, that's entirely up to the board.
Could I ask my second question?
Sure. May I help you? Right here? You're right here. Sign in. Thank you. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Jean.
That's okay. Mayor, I think you're on.
Yeah, so my second question was, their contract ends on December 30th, you said?
31st, I think.
31st, okay.
End of the year.
So what's the impact of, so going out to bid is gonna take some time. I presume that there's a ready list of other companies that you would look at.
We put our, go, Mayor.
It's right online at the DRA website, has a list already available.
How quickly do you think a process like that would take? And the second part of it is, what's the impact of letting the contract expire on December 31st and not having someone else in place?
Having dealt with the contracts before, generally they're just extended. That doesn't usually present a problem. That's my experience.
I would not assume that, we can look it up, but there's probably not an automatic extension on the
No.
general assessing services portion of the
Right.
of the current contract.
Never been a problem in the past.
In their proposal, they have made provisions for multiple opportunities, 1, 2, and 3-year contracts.
Good point.
Yeah, I have it. I haven't, so, Mary, here's my thinking. I'm inclined to accept the recommendation of the board because they've done the homework.
Which I want to thank you guys for.
Right.
That's very helpful, actually.
They've done the homework, and, I would respect their expert opinion in this case. I did receive a copy of the contract, but did not have time to go through it in detail. I think if we put it to vote tonight without Mark here,
It will fail.
so, I'm suggesting maybe we put it off until our next meeting.
Sure.
I will have had time to look at the contract.
Okay, that's fair. That's very good.
You still had another question on the floor, so your two questions, or part A, part B was how long do we need to put it out for bid? I think it would take a month to 2 months by the time you did a request for proposal, get it out, for them to look at it, for them to, most contracts are boilerplate at this time because the companies have been in.
Yep.
So it's a matter of, I think a lot of them price it on number of parcels. And I think their response time would be fair to say would be 2 to 3 weeks, which would be put in the RFP.
Then you'd be dealing with the holidays.
And then you'd be dealing with the holidays and a meeting such as this perhaps. I don't wanna make any assumption, but some board would have to review all those contracts and try to line them up. And it's based on experience, Sue, and I've had this conversation, it's, correct me if I'm wrong, Sue, but it's hard to line up line for line the way they
You just have to make
present
sure
it.
the information they're submitting is, you know, based on,
Apples to apples. I get it.
you're gonna read all the fine print where, you know, if they're not covering all the abatements for something, that they're gonna additional charge in the back somewhere for additional costs that.
So each contract, although it's boilerplate for that company, it's not an industry standard. So I just want to be sure that we address both your A and B, and what if we didn't, then that becomes a legal, quasi-legal question as to whether we have that in the contract, and I'm not sure if we do. But as Arthur pointed out, we could go with a 1-year contract, or we can go out to bid based on what the board does, so you go out to bid
Okay,
based on
we'll
what.
talk about it after Donna has an opportunity to look at the contract.
Sure.
My concern with Avatar was that there was a approximately $500,000 mistake in the valuation that I was personally involved in, and that should have been handled a lot more seriously than it was by Avatar. That's a tremendous amount of misvaluation, and it had gone on for years. So I don't see them as responsive as you folks think they are when you're on the other side of the table trying to get someone to listen to you up there, so.
So can we put this on the agenda for 2 weeks? And
Already there?
And look for a vote then?
Absolutely, yeah. Okay, thank you guys very much. And Sue. We have a 7 o'clock public hearing that we have to open.
Gene, you gonna stay and chime in on this, or you,
This is the public hearing on the poll license, the change to the poll license. I will call the public hearing on the poll license amendment to order. What this is, let me get my notes out. We're making an amendment to the contract that we have with Fairpoint to allow us to, hopefully in the future, be able to assess a property tax against Fairpoint and quite possibly anybody else who puts a license, any of their equipment on the poles of Fairpoint or on their lines. From what I understand, we would not be taxing those additional companies, but it would add value to the pole that we would assess to Fairpoint in our right-of-way. So, did that fairly describe what we're doing?
there's
We have
some
some-
language there that we need to be sure we include
Okay.
in our discussion, so.
Okay, let me give what the lawyer has passed to us. I hereby open a public hearing pursuant to the provisions of RSA 231:163 and 43:2 for the purpose of considering amending all existing poll licenses to include language regarding taxation pursuant to RSA 72:23. We will also consider adopting a revised poll and/or conduit license form which will include language regarding taxation pursuant to RSA 72:23. This hearing is being held to determine if it is in the best interest of the public good to amend the poll licenses so that they are consistent with the property taxation statutes, RSA 72:23. So I will open it to public comment. Is there anyone who would wish to speak on whether or not this is a good idea or a bad idea? Jean Reed?
Gene Reed, Chairman of the Board of Assessors. Let me give a little more background for the folks that are here and for the folks that are on TV. The legislature changed the rules. Previously, telephone poles, conduits, and wires and so forth, and rights-of-way were not taxable by municipalities in the state of New Hampshire. Upon the change of the RSA, the utilities, I'll call that companies, who were aggrieved by that change in law, have now been litigating this for 4 years-ish. It has turned into a legal morass, which is being handled at first in many courts and then finally consolidated. There are 2 or 3 parts that are being litigated. One is the part about rights of way. I will say Chris is pretty well versed on this. I'm not trying to put anything off onto him, but he's got a handle on it. And the other is, in fact, the attachment to the poles themselves. A little more history on that. What's hanging from those poles is regulated. However, there is not a utility that knows who owns every pole and what is hanging on it in the state. This is through information beyond the scope. So it's turned into something that they just don't want to explore, and they're trying to litigate it away. That is, reverse the law. And what you're talking about tonight is a pole license. I don't think many people are aware, but the selectmen have to approve the erection of and maintenance of a pole. So when the municipalities, and every town does this, licenses them to put up a pole, along with that, it forms a mini contract with the utility. The attorneys at this point, to better comply with the RSA, have came up with a statement which they have recommended the town to incorporate within that pole license when in the future you go forward and do that. The utility companies are aware of that. They have sent correspondence to the towns saying, yes, we're aware of it, but I'm paraphrasing, we reserve the right to litigate it later.
We
So,
respectfully disagree with the courts and the legislature and everyone else.
yes. So this is not gonna, whether you incorporate this or not, I submit to you, my opinion is, it's at this point, it's on the advice of counsel for the betterment of the town to protect it, protect the town's position in being able to tax these utilities, as a general statement. So what you do here tonight or in the future, changing that language or not, may increase the town's
Likelihood.
likelihood of following the law the way the legislature wrote it. So I just wanted to give
And of collecting the property taxes eventually.
yes,
Right.
which would
Be wonderful.
yeah, it would. In order to do that, though, the towns have to prevail. And now you hit upon something, and you're gonna ask me, aren't you, what happens if we lose? We don't know.
Yeah.
The common, the way the courts work, because we've been collecting that tax, is if they go for an abatement that goes back many years, we don't know.
Right.
And we're not saving money for it, but the general consensus is they wouldn't ask for it all at once. It would be a payback or abatement in lieu of future payments, something like that. So the issue tonight is the poll tax, strike that, the poll licensure, and what the language is you want to put on, or the attorney suggests you put on the poll.
Right.
That being said, I would hope that we would, at this point, unless we have conflicting information, adopt the language that the attorney recommended. Thank you.
Just to be in compliance with the RSAs that are in force at the moment.
Yes.
And is there any further comment? Public comment? Seeing none, I'll close public comment. There the board has received 2 letters that will be included in the record of this matter from Christopher Allwarden, Senior Counsel of Eversource Energy, dated November 3rd, 2015, and from Margaret Nelson on behalf of New Hampshire Electric Co-op, dated November 4th, 2015. And as I said, I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing.
Mary?
Yes,
May I
dear.
make one more comment?
Sure,
Very short.
okay.
This Thursday, the New Hampshire Municipal Association has this annual conference. Within that conference, there's a workshop on this where they will give their opinion of where we are and where it might go. That's for your information, and I believe you have town officials, other than myself, attending that. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you very much. Now I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing.
You're making the motion?
Yeah,
I'll second it.
all in favor? Aye. So. Any comment?
I have no comment.
Under the attorney's advice, it seems to be the prudent thing to do. The town of Nottingham belongs to a group of other towns who are pursuing this point. And, counsel for that group of towns has recommended this, that we make amendments to the licenses. From what I understand, the Supreme Court has said that it's perfectly okay.
Yeah, in some contexts, it's required. Definitely okay.
Okay, so with that recommendation and the Supreme Court's ruling on that particular matter, I will open it up to motions.
I move that the Board of Selectmen declare that all outstanding poll licenses issued by or under the authority of the Selectmen of Nottingham or its predecessors in office, acting under the provisions of RSA 231:161B, or its predecessor statutes, are hereby changed to incorporate in each such poll license in effect as of November 17th, 2015, and effective as of date, the language recommended by our attorney. And there's about 4 paragraphs of text that I would suggest that Dawn incorporate into the minutes, but I won't read them here.
It's okay.
Okay. Okay.
Need a second.
I'll make a second on that. Discussion?
No discussion.
All in favor? Aye. That motion is adopted. And there's a second motion.
Yeah, I'll move that the Board of Selectmen adopt the language for all poll license applications as recommended by our attorney, effective November 17th, 2015. And again, the language recommended by the attorney is 3 paragraphs long, and we'll look to Dawn to insert the specific language.
I'll second that. Is there any further discussion?
No discussion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Done. Here also, it goes back in the,
Sign that,
okay.
please.
Okay.
No, I'm not running just because the PLIA is here.
So we've done that, I guess we can't talk about much without another selectman.
We don't even have a quorum at the moment, so.
Hey, this
If you
is
wanna
cool.
sing or dance or something?
Oh, no, that's okay.
Okay.
The website redesign, you've done the, change on that
Yep,
number 14?
Yep.
That'll deserve a little discussion.
yeah, we can do that after PLI
Yep.
too.
And that will pretty much be it, right?
That's it.
Cool. Very good.
I look forward to putting this poll license file away.
Oh, I know, but it'll crop up again in another 18 months.
Oh, I know.
It just won't go away. We actually finished the whole PLI thing.
Oh, fantastic.
I guess that's what, I'll invite the people from the
You want, do
Pawtucket
you
Lake.
need to wait for Tom, or, no, okay.
Oh, okay. I'll invite the, people from the Pawtucket Lake Improvement Association to come up and talk about, Lake Host, I think, right? Come on up, guys. Don't make her go by herself.
I'll come and sit with her, but she's got all the facts.
Okay.
so.
And actually, you probably have a lot of them from Andrea as well, right? Did she
Not
come?
with me.
Not with you, okay. Well, I have copies if anybody wants them. Okay.
Do you want us to introduce ourselves?
Sure. Names?
Dee Decker, 11 Lakeview Drive, Lake Coast Coordinator for Pawtucket Lake Improvement Association.
And I'm Pam Kelly, 35 Saks Road, and I'm the secretary of the PLIA.
Welcome.
Thanks.
You guys do a phenomenal job. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
So what would you like?
What would we like?
What do you dare ask for?
Calm down. Making it really open, Mary.
I know.
Well, to start with, I thought that it would be good to kind of review this past year, so that there's a basis of understanding for, you know, what the thoughts are going forward for next year. For the Lake Coast program, in 2015, we had paid Lake Coast at the Fundy ramp, which is the state ramp off of
Deerfield?
Deerfield Road, thank you. And also, we had 2 volunteers at Horse Island, which is in the state park. At the Fundy ramp, we had 4 paid Lake Coast, which did a total of 957.25 total hours. We staffed the ramp from Memorial Day to Columbus Day. From June 25th to September 1st, the ramp is staffed 7 days a week, sometimes as early as 5 o'clock in the morning to handle fishing tournaments. The total payroll for the paid Lake Coast was $9,128.13. The total boats that were inspected were 6,540 during that time. On Horse Island, we had 2 volunteer Lake Coasts from mid-July to the end of October. It was Thursday, Friday nights, and Saturdays. They did a total of 71.5 total hours. Now, their hours work as a match towards our grant through New Hampshire Lakes, and they did a total of $1,497.33 towards our match that's required for our grant. The total boats inspected at Horse Island were 234. The grant for New Hampshire Lakes from this year was $4,300. Local funds were $6,568, $4,000, which came from last year's warrant article from the town, and we appreciate the town's support very much. Without it, we would be in a world of hurt. The PLIA contributed $2,568 from member contributions. And our volunteer match was $6,309. Some of that was from Donna, some of that from me. It included the volunteer hours at Fundy, at Horse Island, as well as others. We had 2 invasive saves this year, one for variable milfoil, which is an invasive, and one for exotic Eurasian milfoil. And
Those are at Fundy.
one was at Fundy, one was at Horse Island. We had 21 samples sent in this year, which was very low compared to previous years. And that's primarily because boaters have become so educated by the Lake Coast program. They know exactly what we're looking for. They do all of the steps that we ask for. Some of them know our Lake Coasts by name because they come, weekend after weekend. We do have a meeting with the Pawtucket State Park Manager tomorrow to talk to him about doing additional volunteer work at the state park. So that's the Lake Coast program as a whole for this particular year. It's a very large program. My hat's off to Donna. She did it by herself for a long time. I took it over from her this year and I had absolutely no idea how involved it was.
It's so easy,
No, it's not.
couple of hours a week.
Yeah, no, it's not. Not at all.
That's what she
So-
told me.
The second issue is milfoil and exotic species in general, and where they were found in the lake, because we had an infestation this year for the first time. And where it was found was off of the Horse Island launch, off of the state park. And the state park and the state, as a general rule, does not inspect boats. They do not want to be involved with inspecting boats because they'd have to do it not just at one launch, but then they'd have to do it at all their launches. So they just don't want to be involved in it. However, I do have to say that as soon as it was found and identified, Amy Smagula at DES was very quick at getting people down there to get it mitigated and get it out of there and keeping track of it. You know, I'd like to thank Neil Santos for swimming out and collecting a sample for us, because it was so deep we couldn't reach it. But it's very concerning that so many boats, kayaks, canoes, inflatables, whatever, go in through the state park that are not inspected, and don't just go through the boat launch. Chris, sorry, thank you, was the main person at the Fundy Boat Launch, and we see very few boats go through the Fundy Boat Launch. It's, people are putting in from their campsites all around the water, at the water sites, and so we need to talk to Dave tomorrow night about how to do something before they get to their sites.
What, if I can interrupt, coming through the entrance, wouldn't that be kind of the place to have a couple of people there to look at all this stuff coming in on top of the roofs and everywhere else?
Well, the issue is it's not a quick process necessarily to inspect it, and we don't want to create a bottleneck.
I know you do.
And there's already a bottleneck there on the really busy hot weekends, so we need to find a space that we can pull people over, do the inspections where we don't impede the flow of traffic, for the people who don't have the things that need to be inspected, and that's,
Or put the lake house at risk.
or put the lake house at risk. Yeah, absolutely.
I just want to add, it's also a voluntary program, so we can't really make people do it.
No kidding.
No,
Yeah,
it's
no
totally
kidding.
voluntary. If somebody says no, you have to back away and do a,
Visual from a
Yes.
distance. Now, if you see someone with a weed on their boat and they don't want to be inspected, I'm sure you can stop them at that point.
no, it's still voluntary.
You can take down their trailer number and give it to the state.
A lot of good that.
We
And
don't
once
have
they,
enforcement
launch, as long
How
as
about
you
if
don't
the,
touch their trailer, you can collect samples and things once they're kind of gone.
Can the warden at the state park, does he have any authority?
There isn't a warden.
The state park, the fellow
the
that-
manager.
The manager, no authority, he's not a fish and game.
No.
The other question I had before I forget is, does that spot where you found an infestation have to be observed for a period of time? Will it crop back up?
It can very easily, and it
Is that
is,
gonna be left up to you or the state?
it's a combination of the Lake Coast, the Weed Watchers which is another group within the PLIA that kind of each has their own section that they go out and keep an eye on. And then if that we see something or find something, but Amy has said that she's going to, be keeping people, keeping an eye on it. She'll go down and check it herself, and if there's any question, she'll send divers right in to do anything that she can.
The good news is that they pay a lot of attention to the lake, particularly, since this whole issue with the drawdown,
Okay.
right? And
Yeah, they
there's-
do. We
and
have-
there's a lot more attention being paid. And they did the, last year, they did the analysis.
Sonar analysis,
The sonar
yeah.
analysis of the whole bottom of the lake.
And Amy said they were doing that again this year to compare.
Right, and so they're doing that on an annual basis to compare. That's why we know a year ago, there were no invasives in the lake at all, right?
And I attribute a lot of this communication between, our lake and DES to you folks, because you're so involved and you've developed a relationship with DES that it's coming, the fruit, we're seeing a lot of the fruit now
I think that's a very good point, and we believe that that's why they've been so responsive and so cooperative.
You guys aren't going away.
But it's important to note that the state has no obligation to conduct mitigation exercises.
Right.
Primarily,
It's the
you know,
town's
it's the towns
responsibility,
are
and it can be
responsible.
very, very expensive. Which kind of takes me right to my next thing, that it's a lot more cost effective to prevent invasives from getting into the lake than it is to try and mitigate it after the fact. It can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. If you just look at Wolfboro and Alton Bay and those areas and how much money they spend.
I think that, isn't the number like $30,000 an acre?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, it's 120, it's
30,000 an acre.
$1,200 an hour for each diver that goes down, you know, to try and
Mitigate.
and mitigate it and pull it out. 'Cause
Eradicate,
it's a very, very delicate process, because the way it spreads, if you break it off and a little fragment floats away, that can spread to a completely another area.
I'm gonna ask you a question, and I hope I never have to know the answer to this, really. Whose financial responsibility is that?
The towns.
Ugh, let's hope we never have to.
So to Dee's point, that's why the prevention is so important.
Right.
Right, and the fact of the matter is, you know, the program has been extremely successful at Fundy, right? The fact that there's one save at Fundy this year is amazing, because we steadily went up.
We had 12 last year.
Right, when I first took over the program, we had 4, and then it steadily went up to 12.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's down to 1, and we're providing, you know,
More coverage.
what's that?
We're providing more coverage.
Correct, right, exactly.
Yeah, we increased it to 7 days a week this year based on a survey that we did last year on the number of boats going in Monday through Thursday, because we were only doing it Thursday through Sunday
We
before.
actually increased it last year.
Oh, that was 2 years ago? Okay.
So the gap and the vulnerable point is now at Horse Island, and there's also another little canoe launch in the
Right.
state park, so those
And the
are,
fact that other people in their campsites are launching from their campsites, which I guess you're gonna deal with tomorrow.
well, so I think, you know, we've gotta talk about what the real ask is here, right? Because I think that there's gotta be, I mean, you could say that we need that same seven days a week, 12-hour day coverage at the, Horse Island, because it would just take one boat coming in at, you know, Tuesday morning at 10 a.m.
Right,
that can ruin the whole lake.
Okay,
right.
so what can we do?
Well, there are a couple of different things. I guess the simplest thing to do would be to increase the $4,000 warrant article that we've had for the last number of years to a higher number to cover some of the hours at Horse Island, so we can have paid lake hosts at Horse Island. We are actively recruiting volunteers so that we have some additional volunteers as well. So that would be, to me, the most cost-effective way of going about it, is to have more paid volunteers so that we're covering both launches. And then there's the question of, if we continue to have issues and the town is required to mitigate it, should we have a capital reserve fund in place to start putting money away for the possibility that, you know, we could be looking at $30,000 or $40,000 or significantly higher if we have a widespread issue.
I think those are very good suggestions, actually.
If we want to, so currently, we spent $9,100 to cover Fundy full-time, 7 days a week, from June 25th to September 1st. If we wanted to do the same thing at Fundy, you know, we're basically looking, I'm sorry, at Horse Island, you know, we're basically looking at double that amount.
Yeah. What, just,
Don't you, do you get, when we give you the 4,000 annually that the
Yes.
town submits, you get a matching amount from the state for that?
So the state grant last year was $4,300, and it's a different number each year based on volunteer hours, and so we don't know exactly what that amount is, but historically it's gone up a little bit each year. And so then the town sends the $4,000 from the warrant article directly to New Hampshire Lakes from the warrant article, and then the PLIA, sent in about $2,500, on top of that this year.
It goes to New Hampshire Lakes because they pay the payroll.
Yes.
Yeah, no, that
Yes,
makes
they do
sense.
They handle payroll, so they're not our employees, they are they.
Very good.
We can coordinate them, but they work for, and all the taxes and everything are paid through New Hampshire Lakes.
That's the way to do it.
One other thing, Dee, is that the money that the town contributes, and even the money that the PLA contributes, that goes towards the match as well.
That qualifies towards our match,
Right,
yes.
so it's not just the volunteer hours, but it's those two, cash contributions as well that go to
So are
the
you
match.
suggesting that we raise the, amount of money that the town contributes to 8,000? Or what is the figure that you're hoping for?
As an op,
As a what, dear?
do I have to identify myself?
Yes, you do.
Yes, you do.
Hi, my name's Tom Duffy. I live at 28 Tuckaway Shores Road in Nottingham, New Hampshire.
And you are the,
And I am the president of the Tuckaway Lake Improvement Association, a 501c3 corporation.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you. This is, that additional $4,000 from the town would be as an actual operating number, that is money that we would commit every year. The idea of anything that might go into a capital improvement
That's different, yeah.
fund with an earmark would be a different.
Yeah, I understand that.
Different type of a thing, and that's a number that, depending on how we're doing with other things, we may find 4 incidents next year, we may find none. We have a lot of eyes looking, and so we're very happy to be catching this as early as we are.
What I'm trying to do is just, right now, we're talking about the amount of money that we're gonna, contribute to the lake host, and then after that, I think we'll talk about the capital reserve fund for some catastrophic thing that may occur in the future. So,
Can I just
Yeah.
take a, yeah, I mean,
One at a time.
those are two good things. I just wanna, explore one other path. And that is, the state park, right? Well, I mean, we've talked about this a number of times, but is there anything that we as two groups can do together to get them to have any kind of a stake in the game?
I would certainly hope that, you coming to the meeting tomorrow night with us, and us going there kind of in tandem, will help do that. This is really gonna be the first conversation that I know of that we've had with the state park on this issue.
Yeah.
I have no idea what to expect, however, I do know that with the state budgets and everything, I'm not very hopeful that they're going to contribute any money.
but you could get them to cooperate with the launching of boats from places other than designated places.
Yes.
That would be one thing that they could.
I'll reiterate what Dee said, because I think she's right. Every time we've approached the state park, did this for a couple of times. One time we did it and had it at the gate where people were bringing in boats and it stopped the traffic, so that didn't work. Another time, we tried to get the state park to do a demonstration site about water erosion for the runoff, you would call it, the grant that we had before from the state and so forth. And, the long and short of it, I went up to the DES, I met with the officer in charge of all the parks, and he said, you can do whatever you wanna do as long as it doesn't cost us anything. We don't have the money, and he just started crying poor, and I said, but Pawtuckaway is your big money maker, and
Yep.
yeah, but that's how we support all the other state parks, and I think though that, I don't think we'll have a problem with the cooperation. I
Okay,
don't think we'll have, if we have that, then, we may call on you to help us at the state level. We have a lot of support. We have some contacts in Dred, and they don't like to be, pressured. They like to be, advised by friends, so it's often easier to talk to them through the friends of Dred. And we have a former head of Dred that actually lives on the lake.
that should be helpful.
It should be helpful. We've never pulled that string, never really had to. The money issue would have always come up. In any event, we probably wouldn't have overcome it, but from a cooperation standpoint, I think if we don't get their immediate cooperation or assent tomorrow, if it has to clear some hurdle in the state before they allow it,
Then what's the specific ask tomorrow?
From my point of view, from a Lake Coast coordinator point of view, for a spot other than the boat launch, to have people pull over to have things inspected, including canoes and kayaks and everything, before they even get down anywhere near the lake, the sites at all, to have a place where they pull over to have, things inspected.
the group camping area has a very large parking lot and a pavilion
Yeah.
at the bottom of
Yeah.
the hill before you get near any of the campgrounds. That would be the most logical place to do it.
But you'd have to have somebody out there who's directing cars in there.
Or a sign, all boats pull in here, or something, I'm not quite sure how, and that's what I was hoping that Dave would be able to help with. Even if they said when they checked in, do you have a boat? Yes, okay, so the inspection site is here, go here before you go to your campsite. That's was kind of my thought process.
I wonder if we can have them develop a sticker, right? Just like, how Maine, you have to pull over into one of the inspection places and get your boat inspected.
Correct,
And you get a sticker,
yes.
right? I wonder if we can get the state park to implement some type of a sticker system.
That might need to be approved by the state from up above.
But it goes, so you drive people into that pavilion parking lot to get inspected. They get a little sticker with a check mark or something like that, it's a Tuckaway State Park. And then maybe it's the rangers, when they see boats, when they're going around, they look for the stickers on the boats. Maybe that's a way you try to enforce that.
It would have to have a date on it or something.
Yeah.
Because, then when they come back next week, they need to be inspected again, so
Yeah.
it might be a tough thing for somebody to spot,
But that kind of a thing would make them have some kind of an investment in it, right? And
Would it be spreading you guys thin to have an inspection spot and then another one down by Fundy and then at the Horse Island? Would that be now 3 places you have to man?
Yes,
Because you couldn't assume that everybody's gone through that little inspection.
that's why you
however,
need some kind of
depending on
proof.
what we get for volunteers, and I think that people understand, because of this whole milfoil that situation that we've had this year, there's a much greater,
Need.
not just need, but,
Urgency.
urgency,
I like
and
that.
people are calling and saying, what can I do to help?
That's good.
And so, we're kind of,
I don't think
yeah.
that's gonna go away either.
I hope that we can really kind of keep that going and do additional trainings, not just one each year, but have a few spread out so that we kind of have a rolling, process.
So you're gonna be there tomorrow night, Tom?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, 2 selectmen can't be there, because then it constitutes a meeting.
Yeah,
Right.
So if we ask the town for $4,000 more, bring the town total to $8,000, that covers half of the additional burden for covering Horse Island. Where's the other half gonna come from?
Well, my initial thought that is if we got that money, that at the very minimum, we could, pay hosts Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Because those are the days that people go into the state park primarily, and then use volunteers, the rest of the time. And see how many boats we have that actually go through there and everything else, and use those numbers to, maybe come back next year and say, okay, this is where we're at, this is what we did, and this was the result,
Yep. We
and
did,
kind of go from there.
what we did up at Fundy was before we went to 7 days a week, we had, Andrew Douglas,
We did the survey,
we did the survey.
right, because I was part of that survey.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right, you did it too.
Yep.
Yeah. But you could get kids from Co-Brown, kids from Dover who need community service, who might be willing to do that survey on Horse Island
Right,
again.
and I think it would be easier for the kids to do the survey than to actually do the inspections.
Right, right.
So I think having adults, do the inspections, people respond, not that they don't respond well to the kids, but they take adults a little more seriously.
Yeah.
With some of that things than they do, with the kids. As far as the state park goes, I do have to say that because Pawtuckaway is the highest revenue state park in the state, I think that is why, DES was so quick to come in and mitigate. Not only do we have a good relationship with them, but the state knows that if Pawtuckaway becomes widely infested like other bodies of water in Maine and Massachusetts, it can ruin the state park, and nobody will want to come in and use that, and they will have a huge decrease in funds, and I think that that's why they were
sure, you would hope.
so quick to, get in there and take care of things, especially where it was very obvious where it came from.
And yet,
And yet,
and yet, they let the state park beach close because they have an E. coli problem.
Right.
And yet, they let the state, so are they really thinking about it? Their whole thing is, well, we don't have any money, we need money, but we don't have any money, we need more money, but they don't do any, they could cure that issue down there and with with a small investment. They have to make an investment, a small investment, and they don't do it.
they don't think in cost-benefit terms. They're not thinking like,
Does anybody that collects tax money think in terms of cost-benefit terms? Or they
yes,
just-
yes.
Here's who you're
think-
speaking to.
Or do they just think in terms of how they're going to spend it? From a legislative standpoint, I would have to think that they just think of how they can spend it.
Bureaucrats, yeah.
Right, but
Yeah.
from a management standpoint, everybody manages a budget, and
Yeah.
that's you, and that's them, and that's their problem. They have a certain budget, how can they do it? If they would let other outside advisors in, it might make some sense. There are some other fundraising things that we may be able to come up with to do it, but I think we need to have the conversations with them first.
Yeah, I'll be
See where the
interested to
money
hear
is
what
coming
happens.
from.
Yeah. The other thing was, before we end this conversation, I wanted to have an idea of the capital reserve fund. How do you feel on that, Donna?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of, it's a necessary evil.
I'm thinking we should probably open it up and start funding it, perhaps 5,000 this year.
Yeah, I mean, 5,000 doesn't get you a lot,
But-
when you think
but-
about but at least it establishes the fund.
As we get, we haven't had a major issue there yet. So if we started at 5,000 and maybe increase it to 10,000, now we've got 15,000,
Yeah.
and all the interest we'll make on it.
I would think of it as something more along the lines of an expendable trust fund rather than a capital
Okay.
reserve fund, because you're gonna want fast access to
Be
it.
able to get to it.
You're not gonna wait,
quickly.
you can't wait till March to spend it, so
Yeah, I
talk
like
about
that.
it in those terms, and think
Okay.
about, I think the selectmen are probably the logical
People to expend it.
spending agents, because you're in session all year and here all year, and, we'll
makes
obviously
sense.
look to people like the PLIA, but
Yeah, that makes sense, okay. So, we'll make an executive decision without Mark here to put that into the budget and onto the warrant this year. How about increasing the, host program to 8,000?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you need motions on that? Okay. Anything else you kids want for Christmas?
No, but I just wanted to give you this for the record.
Actually,
No.
I have,
Thank you.
I asked,
You guys
one
do
of
an
our-
awesome job.
I asked one of our newer lake residents, been here for 3 years now, Jody Latham, to come to the meeting tonight. I believe he and Diane are
Yeah.
back there. I think I saw you on the way in. And he's lived on 2 lakes prior to coming to Pawtuckaway. And one of the reasons that he moved to Pawtuckaway was because, at the very least, we're vigilant. And as of the time that he moved here, we hadn't, this is really our first infection, we can say.
Yeah.
So, and he told me a story. He actually did it in writing. I'd love to have him tell it himself if he would take just 2 minutes to come up and tell us his experience. You did it?
Don't leave him up here by himself.
I'll stay with him. I can read it, what he gave me in the email, but he does it so well himself.
Good evening.
Good evening. And what was your name again?
My legal name is Jerome Lapham, Lapham.
Friends call him Judy.
I've been called that since
I call him
birth.
Mr. Lapham.
Welcome to town.
We looked, Diane looked for a long time at various lakes in and around this area. And she had a pile of literature that was immense. And we chose to come to the Pawtuckaway based at first on what we found on the web. Previous place we lived in Massachusetts was a 200-acre pond called Knobbs Pond Lost Lake, 25 miles from Boston. And it had this particular variety of milfoil. And if a plant can be vicious, this is a vicious plant. I used to monitor 10 locations along the shore of the lake by throwing a 1 meter hook 3 times at 5 different depths in order to monitor the weeds in the lake. And when I swam into that stuff with scuba gear, it actually impeded me. It's a strong stemmed plant, very dense, extremely aggressive. When I first moved there, a guy came by and said, I have a hydro rake and I can break away all of this material that obscures your water so that you can't see the bottom. And he was approved by the Conservation Commission, I think it was. So he dug up our front yard with a hydro rake, told us that we wouldn't need to see him for 5 or 6 years because the plants would take that long to get reestablished. And they got reestablished in less than a year. And what worse is this particular variety of milfoil was what seized the opportunity in our front yard, changed from water lilies in some utricular area to this milfoil. Then we went to Lake Champlain, bought property in the spring, and didn't realize it was infested with Eurasian milfoil, which we found to be pretty mild compared to the milfoil that is now here in the pond. Anything that we did chemically or mechanically to open up an area in the bottom, it immediately attracted this milfoil. I think it's Merrick milfoil hydrophyllum. And we couldn't make it go away. We tried a mud sucker, which is a huge diaphragm pump on a 6-barrel barge, and we would pump these plants out, and they'd come back the next year. It did not respond to dilute chemicals. When you use full-strength chemicals, you open the bottom up for new infestation. I left before the lake got to its absolute peak, but I know others in that area, kept in touch with them, and they used a $90,000 application of diquat, followed by association or homeowners coming up with money for spot treatments. Once you do any of these things, you're bound to do them forever, because you can't just do it one year and say, well, I'm got the money next year. And I think that if you look at it from a money standpoint, and you can't defend Horse Island boat launch as a site that cultures and generates and attracts these species, then I think we should shut it down until we can fund it.
That's a good point. When you talk tomorrow night, see how they would feel about something like that. You know, if we have to, I mean, the Board of Selectmen can stop. What I don't understand is that it's state water. The state is very quick to tell you that's state water, and yet they're going to tell us that we have to use money, you know, from the town to mitigate or prevent all of these infestations. You know, we've been going along with that up to this point, but I think this is what you're saying is very, very scary.
This one's
And I
different.
believe you're true. I believe it's true. I believe once you get this stuff in your lake, you're in big trouble.
What are you proposing?
So what Jody has recommended, that if we can't properly fund the oversight of Horse Island, that perhaps, and the state isn't willing to pony up some more money, a few $1,000s, to make sure that we can,
That we asked them to close down the ramp?
yeah. I mean, go ahead and float it out there.
I think it's probably a negotiating point at the state level.
Exactly.
The guys at the park can't, you know,
Yeah.
2 years ago at town meeting, I asked, looking at the budget, I said, how much does the town collect from the state park whenever we have to send the police there?
Very little.
I mean, they don't spend any money on private police. It's not possible for them to really police what goes on there. They're not trained in law enforcement.
Yeah.
So, it's about time that they took responsibility
I agree.
for what happens in our town.
So whatever the board of,
Can we put a milfoil tax on the details that we negotiate with them for like 4th of July? Right, cause I mean, that's what we do contracts for certain periods, right?
It's a contract, it's not a tax, so, yeah.
But can,
I think, see, you know, I think if you.
Put a toll booth on the
If
on
you
the road.
explain to the state park manager that the Board of Selectmen is behind what you folks are trying to do, and we're very, very serious, that will go up the chain for sure. And, who would we talk to?
I'm gonna actually recommend at the meeting tomorrow with them that we have a meeting with their superiors at the state park. I don't want them to be the bad guys,
Okay,
and they're really helping us open the door that way. Meanwhile, I will start a conversation elsewhere, once I find out who we're meeting with.
would you like to have it with the Board of Selectmen also?
yeah, that's what I was gonna say, do you wanna have it here?
It,
You can think
My
about it, think
immediate,
about
my
it.
Yeah.
immediate sense is that if we do it correctly, we do it in a politically acceptable way on their turf, and make it look like it's their idea, they'll look like heroes. If we're bringing them here to call them on the carpet, so to speak, it doesn't.
No, I don't think we'd be calling them on the carpet,
feels
kind
that
of
way.
work together.
It's just
I
the
know, but it
logistics
feels-
of, we can't go as a board to meet someplace else, because then if there's more than one of us, it's a meeting.
Right, but if there's more than one of you, right, there's more than one of you.
One
I
of us
don't-
can.
I
As long
don't
as
know
it's
why,
one-
I don't know why a selectman's rep couldn't also attend that meeting.
Absolutely,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
yeah,
think that would be the way to do it. We've done that before.
Oh, sure.
I've brought, state people to meet with the DES on their turf, and doors open and conversations are very pleasant.
okay.
Okay, so that's good, I mean,
Yeah,
that,
I mean, we've always had a good, I can't say we always have, but in the last 5 or 6 years, we've had a very good relationship with DES. So
It's
and
not DES,
it's Dred.
it's Dred.
In
They're-
this
they're
particular,
different.
yeah, we have never
Different
spoken
budget,
with Dred.
different people.
Okay.
Is Counselor Pappas on your political radar anyway?
Pappas is not, I tend to go with former officials of Dred who, legislative people or counselors,
He's been very helpful. I have
The
to give
the
him
executive
credit.
counselors tend to be a little bit more effective at moving the bureaucracy than the legislators do.
yes, agree with that.
Yeah. So it might be good to just keep him in the loop anyway of what you're doing.
Good idea.
Call it in when you need it. Don't call it in until you need it, but,
That's sort of my philosophy.
yeah.
So that's what I was trying to be clear on, is what the asks are tomorrow night. So the one is, you know, a centralized, more efficient location for inspections going into Horse Island.
Cooperation and access.
Cooperation with that. And then the second part of it is going to be more of a dialogue with state park management, so we can talk about how we fund and protect this moving forward, right?
Right, what more can we do is the, sort of the ruse to get the meeting.
And that Horse Island is becoming a real serious issue. That's where the infestation
We found it.
occurred.
Right.
And manpower and money is a little tight, and unless we could come up with the funds, and the town of Nottingham is ponying up, the state should as well, perhaps if we can't get the coverage there that we need, that it be closed. Just kind of throw it out there.
Oh, we would. Neil was our eyes and ears down there, and, I'm gonna get him some scuba equipment next year and have him swim around the Fundy, but God forbid, but wanna say something?
Shipwrecks and everything.
I'm Neil Santo, 63
I lost
Shore.
some sunglasses up there about 4 years ago. They're prescription.
Oh, look. Neil Santo, 63 Shore Drive. I just wanted to make a brief comment that, you know, I appreciate the board's interest in making sure this problem goes away or gets mitigated. The lake is a shallow and warm lake, so if this gets going, you'll never get rid of it.
Yep.
We've had property, a lakefront property on Winnipesaukee and Moultonborough. Lots of towns on Winnipesaukee spend lots of money every year on trying to control, not eliminate, milfoil. Moultonborough spends over $50,000 a year on trying to control it. We've tried to sell our property up there, and buyers have walked away because of milfoil. It has affected property values on the waterfront, which should be of economic interest to the
We're
town.
very cognizant of that.
Okay, so, you know, so I appreciate your interest in solving this issue, but the real point is trying to stop it before it gets established, not mitigate it after it gets going, because your capital budget is a good start, but it'll take a whole lot more if milfoil gets well established on the lake. So,
Yeah, no,
We're no Moultonborough.
I'm thoroughly scared,
well, yeah,
so,
I understand that, which,
That's right.
yeah.
so even more of a problem here than it is in Moultonborough.
Well, thank you guys for
Thank
coming
you.
in. This has
Thank you
been,
for
Thanks.
listening and helping us out with this.
yeah, anytime, you know that.
Just a reminder, have everybody sign it before you leave if you haven't already.
I'm already packed up to go.
This was supposed to be quick without Mark here.
I know. Okay, let's see, the poll licenses, the PLIA, website redesign.
Website redesign.
What are you looking for, Chris, on that?
Had to rewrite.
So we left off with this as two of you comfortable moving forward, and one of you wanted to take a time to look over the sites. That's where we were 2 weeks
Yeah, it
ago,
was
right,
wonderful.
right? So,
Even I could use it.
and we chopped out we've made two revisions to the contract language.
Night, guys.
And, just couldn't make the 3-year thing work.
We're just paying it all at once.
And so, yeah, okay.
I think I suggested
It
that.
kept,
You
it's-
did.
it kept
And
looking like an
the-
extended
the-
contract.
The allure of free money time was too great for me. And yes, so
Do you need a vote on that?
I would like your consent to,
What's that really quick?
I'll fill you in. I would like your consent to sign this
We'll make it a
for
motion.
$5,000
We'll
in
make a motion that we enter into a contract with somebody,
virtual towns and schools.
virtual towns and schools for,
Website
website
redesign,
redesign, you can
$5,000.
do that. Website redesign,
Oh, yeah, that wasn't the motion?
Yeah, no, I'm gonna have to second it anyway.
I'll make a motion that we enter into an agreement with Virtual Towns and Schools, for website redesign totaling the amount of $5,000.
And the length of the agreement is a year?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a one-time thing, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I'll second that. Oh, all in favor? I'm waiting for you.
Aye.
Aye, so it's a vote. We did have some comments from, did we get comments on that from the man? You had comments from him. and
He's
was-
good.
He was good
He
with
was
it?
good originally, yeah.
Okay.
And I again, welcome your feedback on design, look and feel, that kind of stuff.
So can you do me a favor and kind of get some feedback from the various department heads that work with the website a lot? I mean, I don't think John does very much.
No.
I don't know, you might want to get a few comments from John.
Well, yeah, they'll all have a piece of this.
Yeah, yeah, definitely involve
I'm
them.
thinking globally, how you want it to look and feel more than what wants to go on each page.
Yeah, but
Those
you
are
know, but that's a good point. What would they like to see on their page? Because that gives you an idea of content, you know, what they would like to see.
I mean, that's legitimate.
Yeah. Cool.
Alrighty.
Any other little thing you need for us?
Nothing.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
We have to think about, I'm gonna second that, but before we adjourn, we have to think about presentation, the potential for a presentation at town meeting, relative to the get-together tomorrow night. Is it tomorrow night?
Yeah.
Wednesday night, dedication of the town report. We have to start thinking about these things, so. Any suggestions you have, kind of, pass over to, Chris? You'll be talking to Mark, get his brain humming along a little bit. All in favor?
You didn't second it.
Yes, I did.
Aye. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.